Live from the Blaze 13:30 a.m. studio in downtown Phoenix, this is Bottom of the Sixth.
Football's on the ground. That's been a problem for Oregon. It's a turnover, and going the other way is Davon Coleman.
Wilcox had it stolen. J.E. Carson on the move, and he ducks it home. Wow, the little man playing huge tonight.
Arian Bryce in the backfield. They're trying to set up a screen to him, and they do. Plenty of running room for Bryce. Bryce inside the 10. Touchdown, Arizona State.
The U.S. have numbers. Altidore spurs it. Dempsey's missed it. Donovan has it. From hope, there is glory.
Rebound by Oles. And should they score? Who's your daddy and what does he do?
Turn up your radio dial. Bottom of the Sixth starts right now. Welcome into your Wednesday edition of Bottom of the Sixth. This is your host, Gavin Shaw, along with co-host Jacob Garcia. Is Jake Gaden sick? We hope he feels much better, but he will not be on the show today. And
natural selection at its finest, guys. Survival of the fittest obviously picked the better Jake, and I'm just happy to be here.
We've been debating all year, and Jacob Garcia has taken the title for a better Jake. Sorry, Jake Gaden. You can reclaim it next week. And now, let's talk some ASU football. Jake, they struggled last week against the Utah Utes, coming out with a 20-19 victory, but for a lot of the game, it looked like they weren't even going to get that. Talk a little bit about ASU's resilience and what they had to do to win that game.
Well, yeah, first off, Taylor Kelly appeared to be reverting back to his old, unconfident ways. He did finish the game 19 for 31 for 144 yards, but, guys, this was obviously the best played game from ASU's defense. The defense kept them in the game from the start. Chris Young had a career-high 14 tackles. Will Sutton had 9 tackles, and then the decisive interception. Robert Nelson also had an unreal acrobatic interception, and Davon Coleman and Gannon Conway each combined for 2.5 sacks and 11 tackles. So, Gavin, I really think that style points are overrated here. True champions can win ugly games, and that's exactly what ASU did.
I completely agree with you, Jake. When you go through a 13-game college football season, there's going to be grueling stretches. ASU just came off on, I know they won their last 3 games, but there's going to be times when you're not playing your best and you're in a tough environment and you still have to pull out a win. I think in a lot of ways, with the exception of the Washington victory, this was ASU's most impressive victory of the year. They weren't playing well. They were going against one of the better pass rushes in the country. Utah came into the game 3rd in the country in sacks per game, and they more than lived up to that, getting 6 sacks on the mobile Taylor Kelly. 2 guys on the ASU offense who really stepped up. Marion Grice had 20 carries, 136 yards, including a big 80 yards in the 4th quarter. And the offensive line wasn't necessarily playing their best game, obviously from a pass protection perspective, but Grice just bounced off tackles. Utah is known for having particularly physically strong defenders, and yet they could not bring Grice to the ground, and I really think Grice inspired that offense in the 4th quarter.
Yeah, and how about the performance by Rick Smith?
That's the other guy who
he finally seems to be gaining confidence, starting to prove his worth. He had 4 catches for 36 yards, caught all 4 targets, and he had a touchdown, which was essentially the game-winning touchdown with 2 minutes and 40 seconds remaining. And it's starting to look like his early season woes are a thing of the past, and he's really starting to move forward now.
I completely agree with that, Jake. And that's so big for them. Kevin Ozier, I believe, is dealing with a minor injury right now. He did not have I don't even know if he played last game, but they're going to really need Rick Smith to step up as a secondary target. Jalen Strong only had 3 catches for 8 yards. He's clearly not 100% healthy, and I think it's time for us to move on to next week. ASU is a big game in Tempe against Oregon State. Jake, give me your early take on that game.
Well, Oregon State has one of the most prolific offenses in the entire country and definitely in the Pac-12. They average 404 yards per game, and their quarterback, Sean Mannion, leads the NCAA with 393 pass yards per game. But to give him all the credit would be a little bit short-sighted. They do have arguably the best wide receiver in the entire country in Brandon Cooks, who's a leading candidate to receive I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. It's just the award that goes to the best wide receiver in the country, let's just say that. He leads the nation in receiving yards and in touchdowns. And his talent really can't be stressed enough. Coach Todd Graham has practically spent the entire week preparing for him. He reminds me of Demaryius Thomas. They run all kinds of exotic screens with him. He has the capabilities to go up for a jump ball. His quickness is just unbelievable. So, again, ASU's defense stepped up against Utah, and they'll have to repeat that performance against Oregon State.
Yeah, well, Coach Graham actually came out and said Cooks is the best overall player they faced, regardless of position, that they faced all season. So that's obviously huge praise for Cooks. What ASU is going to have to do, one way you stop that attack is by staying disciplined. Jake just told you guys they're going to try to run a lot of screens, get in the ball any way they can. If ASU stays disciplined on defense, forces third and longs, and then gets that big pass rush going, I can see ASU really pulling out a big victory. They're undefeated at home all year. I don't see that changing. From an offensive perspective for ASU, one thing they have to do is attack the deep ball. Oregon State has been playing their safeties in all year. Washington, obviously it was earlier in the year. Their defense has been playing much better of late. They held Stanford to 20, USC to 19. Both of those games losses, but not on the defense. But earlier in the year, Eastern Washington had they're a Division II school, but they had a similar attack.
FCS opponent right there.
Yeah, they had a similar attack to ASU, and they scored 49 points against the Beavers. Look for a lot of the same. Oregon State likes to play their safeties in the box, and they really leave their corners on an island against ASU receivers. And I think that's the recipe for Jalen Strong. He's been resting a lot this week. For Strong to have a big comeback game, I think Taylor Kelly finally gets the passing game going after having only 144 yards last week.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think ASU will take care of business against Oregon State. Oregon State has lost 7 out of the last 10 games against top 25 opponents on the road. So I think ASU will come in, take care of business, and the rest is just down the stretch. And Gavin, what do you think will be the key to ASU if they do control their own destiny, but they do have a tougher schedule than UCLA does? What do you think ASU has to do to make the Pac-12 championship game?
Well, we're going to talk about this a little bit more in the next segment, the implications of that Stanford-Oregon game. But what ASU has to do down the stretch is one big thing is they have to stay disciplined, and they did a really good job of that last week. They had 3 penalties for only 14 yards, while Utah had 7 for 80, and that was really significant for the Sun Devils on the road. They're going to have to be able to do that against UCLA, which is going to be far and away with the exception of Stanford, far and away their toughest road game of the year. And now that Arizona lost that game, making the conference title really, really depends on the UCLA game. And I think we're looking ahead right now, but if ASU can just what really has to happen is for ASU's offense and defense to play well on the same week. They did it against subpar opponents. They did it against Washington. Did not bring that against Utah, but the defense, as we've told you, did have their best game. If ASU offense and the ASU defense can be dominant in the same week, I can see them potentially winning the Pac-12, Jake.
Yeah, and I think there's still a ton of football left to be played, and none of these games are by any means cakewalks. But I do like what I've seen out of ASU. They're actually showing that they can win games down the stretch, on the road, close games that championship teams do win. Now, looking down the road to UCLA, if both teams do take care of business and beat their opponents, I'm going to have to go with UCLA in this game. I think their running back, his last name's Jack. He had
Miles Jack. He also plays linebacker.
He also plays linebacker.
True freshman, 145 yards.
Yeah, he had a monster. No, go ahead. 100? He had a monster game against Arizona, and I don't think ASU's defense can hold up with that.
Well, we have an earlier game to predict, the one we've been talking about all day. Oregon State, I'm predicting a 45-35 victory for ASU. The Beavers' offense gets on track, but ASU's just a little bit more on track.
Yeah, I'm going to go with more of the same. I'm going to say ASU does top the 50-point plateau again. They win 55-49.
And that is it for your first segment on Bottom of the Sixth. Come back for the freshman phenoms, Gavin and Jake. A little self-centered, but hopefully you think I'm right.
Looking for adventure in whatever comes our way. Yeah, I don't know, make it happen. Take the world in a loving embrace.
Lucky Man Concerts is proud to present The Devil Wears Prada, appearing live at the Marquee Tuesday, November 26th, featuring special guests The Ghost Inside, Volumes, and Texas in July. Doors open at 5:30 p.m. Tickets are available at LuckyManOnline.com. Follow The Blaze on Facebook and Twitter for your chance to win free tickets. The Devil Wears Prada, playing live at the Marquee on Tuesday, November 26th. Brought to you by Lucky Man Concerts and The Blaze, 1330 a.m.
David Wozniak has a habit of making bad decisions, and the consequences are about to meet him head on.